What's up, guys? It's Wick. Um, so I've been putting off this video a long time because the video everybody asks me what they should build, how they should build, what they should do. I touched upon it on my last with the Siege update, talking about people not building Siege until they're K43 or 42 or above and can defend adequately with them. Um, what I want to do is essentially tell you what my initial intentions for this, and I actually have a video planned out where I have outlines and pages and screenshots and actually built a um slideshow, if you will, the photos that I do to make the videos. And the problem with Evony is that they lie. Anybody, including myself, who watches Derrick Defies knows that they lie. And they tweak with updates, speed and range. And anybody who's watched my videos, especially the initial videos where I talk about speed and range, and it's funny, people are watching it not realizing that my first video is, I think, 2 years old, so maybe a year old. I don't even know. But they don't realize the game has changed since then, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this isn't." And like, yes, I initially, and looking back on it, realized how naive I was. Thought Evony was being truthful whenever they, gave us these numbers in the rally spot with the troop details, speed, range. Like, this is all a lie. Derrick has done a great job of showing, especially with that whole reveal with the Huns, where they forgot to put the lies in the speed and the range, and how they tweaked it after K45, and how that completely changed the mechanics. How our ground is now the baller troop, where before it was siege and mount, to keep us all chasing our tails and spending more money to go and rebuild your keep. And realizing that they are totally full of shit, I realized that it was me chasing my tail. It was me, and if anything, anybody who knows me in real life will tell you, I don't like being pulled, dancing on a string for people. I'm not the clapping monkey. I want to be able to hack the system and be able to understand it in a way that helps me to tank defenses. Um, what today was the finals in All Star. I'm in Continent 3 now. We were in 4. And I finished 34th, I think, 32nd. So we're gonna do this video a little different. I'm in live in the game, and where's the mail? I think I came 32nd. My team came in second. It was a great match. With 15 minutes left, the difference between first place and fourth place in the C3 finals was 17,000 points out of a score of 4.5 million. So, or 4.4, something like that. So it's crazy how close this was. Love this new continent. A lot of the C4 blood that just got mixed into C3. I think, in my opinion, are some of the best players. Shout out to my team that we had some great teammates. And a lot of guys I don't know that were in C3. It's weird. These people, everybody seems to know. I have no idea who any of these people are. But what I want to do is I'm going to show you what I do now. I'm going to show you how I built my keep. Everybody wants to know what my keep looks like. All right, this is peeking up my dress. Here's my build. I'm a K44. I am 57.7 billion. I haven't rebuilt my troops. I think I'm 58. I mean, my traps, and I think I'm 58 with them built. Anybody who wants to look up my skirt, just slow-mo this right down, pause. You can go through my layers, see what's fat, see what's skinny, and you can ask me questions later. But here's my numbers. Here's what's thick, what's thin, where my basis is. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you exactly how I built my keep. Realizing that Evony was lying to me, and that I was basing the mechanics and what hit first and who would tank against what on the numbers, which are clearly a lie, I realized that the only way to build a keep and reliably know what's going to tank, what's going to kill, is by going through battle reports. And battle reports in regular battlefield, even Shalons, isn't very telling, because you're not going up against the most powerful rallies in the game right now. You're going to meet are going to be in All-Stars finals, and it's going to be of a team made up of all K45s and 44s. By the next All-Stars, I expected most teams to be half K45, half K44, and maybe a K43 or a 42 making it in for prelims. By the time you get to semis, you're going to be all K45s and some strong 44s. And that's the way it was whenever 40 was released. So it's the way it's going to happen. So let's go through I saved every defense I took today in the finals. Let's get to the beginning. We'll go through them each one, and I'll show you what my process is for taking it. Now, anybody who played All Stars today knows that there was a reinforcement glitch. You call for rains, they send the rains, and it gets hung up at double zeros for about 20 seconds. By then, all the rallies are gone. So my first set of rallies, I called for rains. We didn't pre-reinforce on my team today, and this is a 115 million rally. But it's funny, Paco was on my team yesterday in semis, and today he's targeting me. But great guy. Loved having him as a rallier. Came in second yesterday and second today. So what I'll do is I'll look. I know he's a 45. I know he's a beast. I know his buffs are beastly. His general's even more powerful than mine. I have my subs, right? Everybody knows this is why I build defensively. I'm a max K44 research, but I didn't have my super buffs here. I think I had my regular buffs here. Debuffs are on, it is what it is. And this is where the donuts are made, all right? You got to go through your reports. And what you want to do is take as powerful of a rally as possible. This is what I've been telling my team lately to get into Bog, which, if you've unlocked, you have no interest in Bog. It's nothing, really worthwhile after you've unlocked what you have to unlock with it. And get into Bog and try to go up against a powerful team and get some rallies put on you. And you want them to be powerful. You want them to be, because you don't want to have to spend money to, heal the troops or revive. Go in there just going, please hit me, message them in the game, message the rally run out of the team, like, I will come into your hive without rains. Please hit me. I'm trying to sandbox my keep. And what you'll do is right now, I'll look at this rally. Okay, clearly this is a siege rally. A good size one by a good buff guy. Right? And let's take a look at what these numbers mean. First number, top left. That's how many troops are left in that layer at the end of this match, of this hit. The flag on the right with the little red cross. That's how many of your troops were injured. And bottom left there with the little two swords and the shield. That's how many troops that layer killed. Right now, this is battlefield, so patience. Troops don't die, so the little gravestone to the right is a 0. Bottom right is how many go to the holy troop soul, holy place or whatever. That's obviously 0 in battlefield. And bottom left is how many deserters you have. 0, this is battlefield. So what you're going to do is be looking at wounded and killed, right? How many they killed, that's the bottom left with the crosses. How many of your troops were wounded? And you can essentially look and see a ratio. Okay, let's look at my and you literally go layer by layer. Ground, 16 million of my troops. This is a siege rally. You wouldn't expect them to really take a lot of hits. They lost 408,000. They killed 4 times as many, 1.6 million. You would expect ground to kill siege if you understand that the numbers they give you are lies, right? The speed of ground is much higher than 350 now. Or 300. That's a total bullshit number, right? And now we know it's a lot higher ever since the K45 update, which is why now ground is on range so much faster. They also shortened the range. Again, go watch Derrick Defies video if you want this in detail. He's really good at that stuff. Much respect to Derrick. And essentially you go layer by layer, and I'm thinking, okay, so for my siege attacks, or my taking siege hits, my ground gets there. My ground does some killing, right? So whereas before the K45 update, ground never got anywhere near siege until really late in the match or big, huge rallies, now ground is actually doing some killing here. And you start to think about the best way that I think about how many troops that killed is how much of an army did they kill, right? So an average march size, K44, K45, 7 to 9 million size march. He's killing off, a 7th to a 9th of somebody's army. Okay, that's a decent amount of kills. Ranged went negative, which you would expect with a siege rally, right? Because the siege still makes it through to your range sometimes. And again, don't forget about the concept of counter damage. If they're killing somebody, they're going to take damage. So again, there's going to be some hits here. Mounted troops, they're supposed to be the faster troops. Their speed is higher than ground, so they're going to be on the siege as well. But then why is ground getting more kills? Two things. The speed is much faster than they lie about. And 2, the other concept of and the hypothesis is that the ground starts a little further out on the battlefield now, or they gave them a head start. There's an argument about that to be made. My T15 siege, right? So I'm not liking the fact that I went negative here. I lost 4,313,000 and only killed 3 million in return. Now, to that layer's credit, a lot of that kill was probably T16, right? So the defense here isn't fantastic, but you move down the layers. Okay, ground. So as I'm doing this, I'm taking mental notes. Okay, so for a siege rally, which I'm a 57 billion K44, which is mostly what you're going to see in the beginning of Battlefield. And again, it's important to have other concepts and ideas that you get in from through experience about Battlefield. For instance, the troops you're going to get hit with in the first half hour are everybody's fresh troops. These are the highest tier troops. And what you're getting hit with in the last half hour is most people's dust. So what you want to think about is, okay, and I've seen people do this, get nailed, get zeroed, heal bullets for the first hour. When you come down in the back half of the hour, that's when you see the people making huge point gains by making full heals in the back half of the hour, because now you're facing people's second tier troops, second battle, or their dust, T12s and T13s, because their 15s and 16s too expensive to heal. So again, keeping that in the back of my head, I'm going, okay, I'm a K44, 57 billion. I'm going to be seeing siege. So automatically I'm already thinking, okay, so if this layer was twice as thick, I would have killed twice as many troops, right? So if my T14 ground was 30 million, I would have killed 3 million troops, which is like half of somebody's army here. So to make it more relevant here as a defense, right? I want to think about making that layer thicker. Okay, that one needs to be thicker. That I would have done better on this defense if that layer is thicker. T14 ranged, getting kills. This is where you should be taking note. None killed, right? Look at that on the T14 range. 0 killed 110,000. So you're getting, essentially, that layer is getting free kills. Those are the layers you're like, that's the layer that has to be maxed. Now you move down to T14 mount. Unrequited kills, right? Which means that only happens whenever you eliminate somebody's whole layer, right? Because in order to do counter damage, part of that layer has to survive. If that layer gets eliminated in your turn and in its entirety, you don't take counter damage. So when you see those zeros, you're like, oh, so when I get hit with siege, my 14 ranged, my 14 mounted are getting elimination kills. So if that layer was even thicker, when I get to next All-Stars, when I'm facing 160 million rallies, which we will see, mark my words, we're going to be seeing 160. I think today alone, my friend just picked up that the new Elder Dragon, and right now the competition keep that you're not seeing is you own to activate 12% rally buffs if you haven't seen it yet. So for you guys out there, that's important. For the rally runners out there, you may want to consider coining this keep during this event with the weird Nazi guy using the Nazi salute. T14 siege again went a little negative, right? But you're thinking, okay, so my T14 siege went negative here, but what protected it? What picked up the slack? If you take the T14 mounted kills, which they lost nothing on, and you add them to the T14 siege, I'm like, oh, okay, so that's why this defense did okay, because my 14 mounted protected my siege. Quite a reversal from before the K45 update when siege protected mount from ranged. The game, I'm telling you, these Evony developers are so devious. They literally will swap out 180 degrees here, right? So what am I learning? I'm going through this and I'm learning. Okay, so mental note, 14 thicker doesn't help me here as much as 14 thicker, right? 13, obviously for All-Stars, it helps to be thicker for offense, but on defense, it doesn't necessarily help me. 13 ground. Again, way positive on killed to wounded ratio. That thicker. So a thicker ground there. So far we're thinking mounted ground thicker, advantageous. Range, somewhat advantageous. Now let's move down to 13 range. Again, unrequited kills. 13 mount, unrequited kills, right? So that's a million freebie right there. Just toss that on to my other layers that went negative. My siege didn't do great. So right now, I am now learning that at this level of All-Stars and with the new tweaks, building more siege is not going to protect me against siege, which is what everybody's doing right now. What's going to protect me against siege? Fatter mount, fatter ground. Now let's move down. 12 siege, way negative. Obviously, everybody knows about the range difference. It's much lower at 12. That's where you drop off quite a bit. So it's not a surprise that it went way negative here. 11 ground, some positive by a lot, ranged positive, mount positive, Levin siege, right? This is where I stopped their rally halfway through killing that layer. Also negative. What else killed? 10 mount, 10 siege. Isn't that interesting? 10 siege, which with a much lower range, is getting unrequited kills here. In other words, freebies, no injured. Isn't that interesting? 9 ground, 9 ranged. And you got to remember these numbers because we're going to go into the second half where we're going to go through the attackers and every single trait of their army. Right? This is where you get the rubber meets the road. This is where how you make the donuts. 9 mounted, way positive. 9 siege. What? Right? 4 million kills with 0? How does that even work? Right? Again, to do that, it had to wipe out a layer, which means the 9 siege has to be fat enough to kill 4 million. That's a monster kill there. Right? And again, if you keep going, hundreds, thousands, positives, this is all positive, but you're noting is mount. Okay. So I have now learned, and by the way, everybody knows about this. Please stop asking me if you need to build T1 through 4 siege. Don't do it. I did it because I'm trying to lull people. I want to go negative on that first hit, so lull them to hit me with siege again in my regular rallies when you're facing regular teams. For all stars, this is just bleeding out. Right, unrequited kills. Right, and by the way, don't forget about the point power ratio. While these represent a smaller amount of power, these actually represent a massive increase in points per power that I'm losing here. So for all stars in Battlefield, you have to understand losing 2, 3, and 4 layers is a bad proposition. 1 is not bad, but 2, 3, and 4 is really bad. Unrequited, and then isn't that interesting? T1 mount, 5 million. So if I'm taking notes on this battle report, and this is just the first one, and I'll get through this. And by the way, if you're watching this at normal speed, speed it up. Go to 1.5x. You want to get through this video quickly, right? T1 siege, completely worthless, right? Mounted, 5 million. So if I had 1.5 million T1s, which sounds like a reasonable goal before the next echelons, that would be 8 million kills, right? That's another half an army swallowed up. So this is the way I mathematically do it because essentially it's a cheat sheet. I'm not going to do the arguing about speed books if they're on or they're off and arguing about distances and lies and equations. I'm just going to use this cheat sheet to say, okay, take notes. T1 mounted, goal, 1.5 million. T7 mounted, which did pretty solid, right? Move that up. T9 and 10 siege, They defend. They defend damn well here. And what's interesting is I look at the T9 and I look at the T10 siege. Why was T10 so much more kills than T10? You know what? I don't know. I can't figure it out. It doesn't make any sense because Evony's doing some fucking Evony fuck math. But T9 siege are a lot cheaper than T10. And they had a better kill ratio here. So I could probably get to 70 million T9 siege and take this kill ratio up to 9 million for this layer next battlefield. And I can do it pretty much on the cheap for hell of a lot less than building that many T10 siege. So again, T9 siege, check. T1 mount, check. T12, 11, 10 mount and ground. Okay, I want to fatten those up a little bit. I might throw, a couple million at each layer to see if thicken them up really helps me out. Right? But then this is where the other flip side of the coin is. I'm going to go through the enemy's reports and see what I can glean from this. All right, notable right off of Paco. He's the rally runner, was my teammate yesterday. He's using fat layers. He's using 10,000 layers. Very smart right now. He's getting kills. And this is where, again, this is like part of dissecting the game. T16 siege house, but didn't go positive, which is interesting. T14 siege went way positive, but was a small layer. 15 siege. I can't explain why his layer was that small. My guess is I wasn't his first rally, and that's probably all he had left in that layer. Sometimes the game will automatically backfill with T16s, right? Since it was so high. But so he built an army here with 6 million T16 layer, killed 4.5 million negative. T15 was only looks like 330,000. only killed 1,000,000. Then his T14 layer was 1,000,000 and killed 3,000,000. So now whenever I'm thinking about that, I'm looking at the March build and going, so you don't want a 5,000,000 top layer siege with a ratio of negative. You want a fatter T15 layer and an even fatter T14 layer, which again is it's a 3-to-1 ratio layer. So building your marches is doing this in reverse. What's it hitting me with? Oh wow, his most effective and efficient layer here. It's T14. Wow, maybe I want to fatten that up. But wait a minute, is that the most efficient layer? This was a real shocker today when I was dissecting reports. Look at that. His T12 siege layer was 10,000 and killed 142,000. It killed a 14-to-1 ratio. Can you imagine if T13 did that? Or his T14 did that? He would have killed 14 million here. He's using the right layers, but I think he's stacking wrong. I'm not going to tell him that because I'll probably face him next All-Stars. And if you're watching Paco, fuck. That's the shitty part about making these vids. Let's move on to the next player, right? Same thing. So back to the top. Do it all over again. And I'm going to do this over and over and over again. I'm going to tell you, first thing I'm noting, okay, this guy's not using 10,000 layers. He's outside of that 8 to 12,000 sweet spot, and he's in a little bit of small layers. Let's see what his kills do. 16 goes positive. It's a small layer. 15, positive, 2-to-1 ratio. 14, 2-to-1 ratio. 13, 1.5-to-1 ratio. 12, half-to-1 ratio, right? Interesting, right? It's blowing my mind. Like I said, there's some fuckery afoot here. 11 is a 1-to-1 ratio, right? I don't see that being useful in here. 10 went negative. 9 went negative, negative, right? So again, you're not seeing any real significant kills moving on. Cabo, I don't know him. I don't know that his buffs are as good. So I'm like, okay, that some of that might be buff fuckery. I'm not sure. Debuff fuckery even. Kiss me. Let's see, 10,000 layers. It's a sweet spot. He's a positive 16 layer, right? And again, you also have to think about right now, don't forget attacks happen in the order that these people are listed. So Paco was going up against my highest layers. That's probably what accounts for his negative up top. Cabo now is probably hitting my T13s with his T16s, right? And I'm going negative and he's going positive. You're kind of thinking about this being an event, right? Like a story starting from beginning to end. So the rally runner has to face the hardest troops. And once he decimates those layers, the people later joining the rally, again, this is part of a strategy. And I'll just touch on it. When you create a map of your hive, strongest players in the middle, next strongest players on the next ring, and then the weakest at the outer ring. That's so that when they join the rally, the strongest players are joining first and hitting first, and the weakest players are hitting last at the weakest troops. That's actually very, very good strategy. If you put your two strongest players on the opposite sides of the hive, that strongest players' troops are going to be coming into the rally at the last part, hitting the weakest troops, but the weaker guys are going to get decimated against the strongest troops. So that's the reasoning behind hiving with a map, which a lot of the top alliances do. Anyway, so what do we learn from this? Again, okay, T16, I'm sorry, 16 siege goes positive, 15 siege goes 2-to-1, 14 siege goes 5-to-1, 6-to-1, 6-to-1. 13 siege goes what the fuck, right? 13 siege goes 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, roughly 14-to-1. So I mean, wow, right? And what are they killing off at this point, right? It's just you're running into a wall. 12 siege goes a little negative here again, right? So and again, I'm also noticing the sizes. This player, poor Athena, forgot to march size buff or turn on her dragon skills because her army stopped at 14. So this is kind of a wash. Maybe that's one of the reasons I tanked. or ran even here without rains. But, you know, again, we're going to do this again over and over again. Okay, this guy's using even bigger layers. Let's see if this compares in terms of kill ratio: 16 positive, 15 positive, 14 positive, 13 2-to-1 layer to 12. Whoa. Right? So one thing this review is going to change on my March builds is I had a very wimpy, I think 300 to 400,000 T12 layer in my Siege March. Tomorrow I'm going to decimate and rebuild my Siege March to take from no, I'll probably take from my 15 layer a little bit, take 100 or 200,000 off each layer, 13, 14, 15, and stack them out into my 12 layer to get me up to 1 million on the 12 layer. Because that did some real fucking damage here. Look at that. 1 million, 1.3 million layer doing 17 million kills. Yes, that's going to help your score in All Stars and Shalons and Battlefield, right? Also note this player is at the upper edge of the sweet spot. I think their layers are actually, believe it or not, maybe a little too thick, taking a little power off the top. Because if you took all these, you know, the extra 5,000 off these layers, right, and moved it up to into your T12, maybe that's a better idea here for a little bit more power. Let's move on to, oh, that was Muzi. Sorry, Muzi. Now let's move on to Chinese person I can't pronounce, right? And I'm not going to do this the whole video. I'm not going to do this for an hour and a half, but I'm going to move on. But I'm going to show you, like I said, this is my building process. All right, these are 5,000 layers. And they sent a ground army. Okay, that's one way to go. Who was this? Asian person. Okay, so this person is probably not on voice, not their fault. They probably don't speak the language. Kind of can forgive that, right? So didn't do so hot. Ground layer hurts. And what sucks for the rally team is that this person locked out another person who tried to send siege, and the rally got too full. So that's a bad thing. This is super fat layers. This is a 25,000 layer player, Lay Renard. Let's check his again. Understand these are all K45s. This team, I believe, was stacked out with 11 K45s today. T16s run even, 15 runs positive, 14 runs way positive, 13 runs way positive, 2-to-1. He doesn't have a significant 12 layer, but it ran 10-to-1. Huh. So this guy could have been more dangerous if they had more T12s. I think his layers are a little too thick. Interesting. His T11 did almost 10-to-1. Right? Let's lay Renard. Shadow. Let's move on to Shadow. So this is my process. I did this for a couple hours after Battlefield ended today. 13 siege positive. Was his 14? Is a very small layer. Was positive. 15 is anemic. Interesting. You wonder if this person just ran out of troops or if this is their build. If this was a teammate or a close friend, I'd reach out to him with that feedback. 12 siege. Look at that. Holy shit. 10-to-1. All right. So now after you sent a T11. Okay. This person used a T11 march on me. Went way positive to their credit. Interesting. Okay. Threw a T11 out. Might have just papped the wrong button. I don't know. Roland's curse. Look at that. 10-to-1 with a thick T12. Damn you. Right. So maybe that's why my T11s and 12s did all those kills. Now, I got all these. I got wiped out here, right? I'm going way negative for these. I'm taking these kills. And a lot of these, I'm sure, because you've seen how many T1 through 4 siege I have, were probably those layers. So I'll be interesting now. I'll be looking at the next attack for siege and see, are they still getting these numbers, or are these just all the T1 through 4 fodder that they're getting through? Probably the latter, right? Von Golf, very anemic layers. Only he's still using 1,000. I don't think he's going to do great here. 2-to-1, 2-to-1, 2-to-1. No, but he's also facing very late too. Yeah, so his layers probably eked out very early in the battle, right? He doesn't have anything here going 10-to-1 like the other players do. Although there's probably not much left, but we'll see. Bowler, fat layers, super fat layers. and so on. All right, you guys don't want to watch me go through one by one, but yeah. So let's go through one by one. These are my reports for today. 518. That was the first Paco. Next one was the ranged hit that I took. This one, the rains got in, right? I told you there was that glitch. So the rains are trickling in here, making it in on time. So thank God I'm not taking this alone. If I did, I probably would have gone negative. Way out buffed, right? I'm a 44. I'm done with all my research, but you're not going to be able to match the 45's buffs on offense. Like, look at those monster buffs. My debuffs got tapped out, you know, even the siege that he wasn't sending. Me, Ollie got in, Big Earl, I'd Iraq. So I had three rains here. Let's see what they did kills here. Essentially the way the battlefield's running right now, you're going to be seeing siege range, siege range, siege range, and then once you're about a third of your power, you're going to send the mount in the ground and try to one shot you. So if you're a rally runner, you know that because you know that's the strategy you'd use. Let's see what my defense here. So ground is housing. Look at that. No wounded. Housing 3 million. Mounted, the 15 mounted just got raped. 14 ground is killing off half an army. Range is getting kills. So think about that. And anybody who's got the concept of a trap keep, and I did a video on trap keeps, look at that ranged troop, right? Ranged will kill ranged. And if you're wiping out that layer, you're getting no counter damage. You're going to get unrequited. So, let's take a step back. Immediately, that layer tells me if I want to defend against ranged attacks, which is I very much do, especially if you're port swapping a lot, I want fatter archer layers. And not just any archer layer. 14 is doing pretty well. 14 mounted rate, 13 ground, unrequited kills, 13 ranged, unrequited kills. Right? So I got to thicken up my 13 layer by a lot. I got to thicken up my 14 layer by a lot. 12 ground, 11 ranged. 12 ranged. Didn't do so hot. 12 mounted rate, 11 ground tanked. That's one of my fatter layers. Look at that. 11 ranged. Wipes out almost an entire army. T11 mounted, raped, but got a lot of counter damage. Siege, 10 ground, right? Way positive. So if my 10 ground, which are a cheap troop, doesn't give up a ton of points for power, right? It's on the upper end. I have a lot of percentage buffs, not a lot of flat buffs. I do have some flat ground for my T1 ground defense buffs. So, and again, flat buffs work a little better at the lower tiers. So 10 looks like a layer I want to double. Write that down. T10 layer, double for next All-Stars. Should be 40 to 60 million, right? Or triple it. 11 ground, okay. It's going to be expensive to double that and only get 3 billion kills, but my 10 ground is killing here. 10 mounted, right? Got raped, but did a little more counter damage. Now here's where you get interesting. And I remember I was in Discord. This is one of the reasons I left the Discord. I go to Discord. I'm looking at these reports, and I'm trying to tell people, hey, if you're trying to defend against siege, top up your defend against archer, top up your T10 siege and your T9 siege. They tend to do really, really well. And it was like the whole fucking world descended on me of all these guys. One of the things I hate about the Evony community, and which is why whenever new players reach out to me, I'm always trying to tell them, listen, dude, I'm rooting for you. Go get them. When a player has been playing, it's like, you ever seen that meme with Castaway where it's like whenever Tom Hanks like just first gets on a plane, he's chubby, he's warm, and then it shows him like after like he's been on there for years and he's all emaciated and hairy and like the old grizzled veterans of Evony, when they know you've been playing shorter than they have, or you're new to the game or newer to the game, even though I've been playing for 3.5 years, and you start telling them something you observe, they always immediately want to tell you, shut the fuck up. So I don't. I made the mistake today actually by doing a Discord. I'm like, oh geez, I forgot. Like they don't want to hear about this from somebody they just met. So I don't. I just really share it with the younger players because they're eager for knowledge. And whenever I talk to older players, I don't give unsolicited advice. Usually, like I said, I did it once today, and I was reminded very quickly why I didn't do it. 10 siege, T9 siege, cheap troop, doesn't cost a ton of resources to train. Not like 15 or 16. Doesn't cost a lot of speed ups to train. But look at them fucking tanking ranged here. They're absolutely housing. And if my layers were half the size. I mean, each one of them pretty much smaller to march, right? So if I double those layers, they're swallowing 2 marches. And again, if I'm going to be seeing rallies that are about 50% or 30% bigger than they are now, I need to start thinking about how I'm going to defend against them, right? Those layers were my tank. T1 ground, huh? You know, losing 3 million T1s to kill off 2.7 million troops, not a bad thing. T1 ranged. Yeah, look at that. Ranged killing ranged. Um, T1 mount didn't do a huge thing here, right? But remember, kills were unrequited. In other words, they're wiping out layers for me, helping the battle end quickly. So let's take a look at my reigns. Let's see if they did a lot of the killing for me. Yes, Ollie housed here. Look at those ground kills. Thank you, Ollie. All right. If you had thicker layers here, wow, yeah. If you had thicker layers here, bud, you would have probably doubled these things. So Ollie, if you're out there, again, thanks for the reigns. Thicken up those layers, man. These reigns will last a lot longer. See, we swallowed on defense here. If he had 10,000, like your reigning layers, this is why I think the 8 to 12,000 that sweet spot. If you're reigning and these layers survive, right? Like the T12 mounted here might survive, well, not really, but the ranged, you know, did survive. But you want it to last a long, long time so you can tank multiple rallies without having to pull your reins, right? Like these numbers will do better if they're thicker. Um, Big Earl, he's a beast. I know that. 15 ground, housed, ground, housed, ground, housed. Right. Thanks, guys. These rains, like I told you, these rains saved my ass today. Eventually getting at Iraq. And these guys tanked on D whenever they started getting hit. I felt bad. Ollie got screwed with the reinforcement glitch today. Iraq, 15 ground, doing massive kills. They're pretty much what you'd expect. They all sent ground, the right troop, and they all go massively positive. So each one of them swallowing and doing enough kills to take on one, you know, Iraq's worth one march. Big Earl's worth another march she swallowed for me. Ollie is another march, right? So each one of them swallowing up another rally for me, another march, a rallier, joiner, means that instead of having to face 3, 4, 12, 13 players, I only had to face 10, right? A much more doable rally. That's what you got to think about reigning. How many of these guys take out for you? And again, I would do this whole thing same way, right? So far, I've noted through my first 2 rallies, T9 and 10 siege needs to go up to defend against ranged. My T10, 11, and 12 ground layers thicker. 14, 11. I'm sorry, 13, 12, 11 mount fatter is good for defense because they're helping out against siege. So right now, right, so I've got all these notes taken down, and now I've got a goal, right? And then you're thinking, okay, and I'm thinking in terms of how many marches did they kill, and if I double the layer and I get double the kills, what would that have done to this report? I would have tanked better, and that's how I've gotten to the build I have now, is by getting zeroed, by getting up against these massive alliances. We're going up against these monsters, K45s, in Shalons and in regular battlefield. And I actually get really upset if I don't get hit because I don't know what to build. Um, you know, I'll let you take a peek at more of these. That was just the first 2 by Paco. Third with Paco was a siege hit where I believe we went a little neg. I only had 2 reigns here. Again, same thing. In terms of reigning glitch, you know, I called for reigns, but nobody got in. I'm sure I'm way out buffed here. I am, right? I'm just a lowly 44. Chewbacca and Ito are on me. Chewbacca wasn't reigning. The other one, let's see. He's got nice fat layers. They're surviving, you know. Look at his mounted here. Siege, 14, 13 ground. So he sent me a ground march. Still got some pretty decent kills. I mean, look at his 14. Iraq sends me siege. He should do a little better with kill ratio, but this is I think the same rain from the last hit. So it's a little weak. No, 13. Look at that, right? He wiped out an entire march himself with Siege with his 13 layer. Solid. All right, how much more am I going to glean out of that? 1, 2, that was the third. This is my third rally. No, this is one I just showed you guys, sorry. Fourth rally, right? Nope, defending Lazo, that's not mine. He did great. Lazo was great today. It's my little defending buddy from yesterday. This was a later siege, right? So this one I'm doing okay. I've got tons of rains. I do a little better. 78 million rains. They're sending, this is a 113 million size rally from Paco again. I don't know why I was getting all that love from Paco, but I was happy to be hit. Battle detail. Let's take a quick look at kills. Anything stands out here? Mounted is tanking. 13 mounted. My 13 siege layer, he made it through, which means he's going to cut me for negative on 12. And again, like you do this over and over and over again, it gets a little faster. My T12 ground layer did pretty good here. I need to fatten that up. This was later in the match, so I'm sure that a lot of that is lost from rallying. That's not my regular layers, I don't think. 11 siege goes way neg. 10 siege goes way negative. Barely any kills here. 9 siege, right? That's another notable. So if I'm going to fatten up my 10 siege protect against range, it's going to get housed if I let my 13 layer disappear and they get down to the 10s. So I should be building my T10 siege layer up to protect against range in tandem with a fatter T13 layer. Or I should have healed before this hit. 9 siege. I also remember for this hit, my buffs expired because I turned on the 10-minute buffs for the first set of rallies. So I don't even think they were on for this. 9 siege. Isn't that interesting? Only lost to 1,300, but kills 6 million. 8 mounted. Huh. So my lower layer mounted, which I only have 10 million right now, killed off 2 million, half an army. So if I fatten that layer up, and my T7 layer, sure enough, wiped out an army and a half of siege, which everybody who knows basics on the game understands why that is. All right. 4 mounted, still notable kills. 3 mounted, 2 mounted, notable kills. 1 mounted, 700,000. Okay. And 1 ground. While my 1 ground layer is smaller than my 1 mounted, twice as many kills. Also notable. Okay, so we want to get the T1 ground, very cheap troop, up to over $1 billion. I've been lazy about that and procrastinating. That was my last Paco, I think, right? Yes. Seth hits me. Siege. This is the one my buffs expired, right? I think so, yeah. That's definitely my buffs expired. Seth hits me. I go negative. Reinforcement buff, of course, is gone. This is why I've got no rains. I'm 44 billion down, so I'm down about 20% of my power. Let's take a look. Cut through my 15 siege, 14 siege. The 15 siege at least did some counter damage and didn't get raped. 14 siege is a much worse proposition. 13 siege, he didn't make it punch all the way through. Still went negative on. Where are all my kills coming from? This doesn't make much sense already. That 11 siege, there it is. 12 siege. 10 mounted. All right. And 5 mounted. Isn't that something? 4 mounted. 4 siege. Oh, that's right. I full healed. That's why. And all my lower tier siege is getting housed here. 1 siege. Didn't kill it all. 1 mounted, 1 ground. Did pretty well here. And even T1 range got in on the match here. So my mounted is protecting me here. Take a quick look at their attacks. This is siege. Big siege. Big siege. What's killing me here? He's going way positive the whole way down. Right? Naked and buffs expired. It's on me. 13 siege. Alright, that's the first Ceph, obviously followed up by another siege again. This time my rains make it in, and I'm able to stay positive, or run around even. Right? So I don't want to be taking naked 120 million rallies with siege. Lesson learned. Especially when I'm way out buffed. Battle detail. Right. 15 siege, neg. 14 siege, negative. Just a little bit. 13 siege. Did a little more killing. Okay. This is obviously thanks to my brains. Laza, Chewbacca, Big Earl, big props to you guys. Thank you. Anyway, that was second Seth. This is third Seth when he sends his archers at me. Right, so let's take it to the archers. I want to show you the other troops, right? Because we've done siege, we've done archers, mounted, getting housed, again, getting raped. This time I've got reins, so they're able to do a little more counter damage, not facing the best. Ground does some killing, that's no surprise, right? Okay, those layers need to be fatter. 13 ground fatter. 13 siege is getting some kills here. Wipes out an army. Thank God they still have the 13 siege. Half an army. 12 mounted is getting some kills. 12 siege getting some kills. 11 ground. Thinking of how thick the middle layers are and how many kills they get, right? It's almost sudden this exercise of going through the last few reports has pretty much been okay, my middle layers need to be thicker. Just across the board. 11 siege, 10 ground. Damn. So if my 10 ground was double the size here, I would have wiped out an entire army. 10 siege, getting some kills, getting in on the game. We already established that with the last report. 9 siege, free kills, none wounded, killing off half an army. 8 siege, in on the game. Huh, okay. Even 4 siege all the way down. And let's see what our T1s did. Ground, 2.2 million. I don't mind killing off 2.2 million K-45 troops at the cost of 6 million to T1 ground. They're very low point to power, and they are cheap to train. Should have been, if I double up my T1 ground layer, I would have swallowed up half a layer. Chewbacca getting some kills here, I'm sure. Let's see. Let's go up to the top. Mostly layers. This was because the layer was depleted. Yeah, his siege took some. That's interesting. Look at that. The siege took a hit here. Laza's ground. Doing good stuff for me here, right? Awesome stuff. Big Earl. Ground. Ground tanking. Ground tanking. No surprises here. Do love his layers here. They're bigger. 5,000 is pretty decent, you know. Laza's 3,000. He's a little anemic. This probably could have done even a little better if his layers were fatter. Anything notable here? Seth is using only 2,000 layers. And his sending ground? Isn't that interesting? Hey, Seth, brother. You have a ground layer? T5 ranged. He's out of troops here. T1 ranged. Okay, never mind. He sent ground because he's out of troops. Interesting. Had to heal before he sent this. Love you, Seth. Although I think it's Soul Taker driving Cephalon's keep. 15 ranged. Massive kills here. 14 ranged. Running even. 13 ranged and 12 ranged, which usually are people's thicker layers. Woozy. Anything interesting here? Very thick layers. Very effective that way. Better kills. Interesting that his T16 went negative. T14 negative. 13 negative. 12 negative. Interesting. I'll take a closer look at this and try to figure out by playing it through my head what happened here exactly. Maybe it's getting hit by siege, but I'll try to match the numbers to kills versus killed on my report, right? 14 ranged. 13 ranged. All right, so I think I've learned what I'm going to learn from that Seth rally. Let's take a look at Watson's rally. He sent over a siege. It's only a 90 million size rally. This is late in the game. This is more than halfway through. Everybody's throwing dust, which is the only reason I tank here. Um, let's see. Siege. Again, this is real world conditions. And again, you're thinking of being depleted. I love these reports most because now I'm going, okay, all my troops are depleted. I'm getting wiped out. I'm massively trying to reheal siege so the siege doesn't cut through to my archers. What's getting kills here? What's saving my ass? Oh, that's right. I brought back, and I do remember this, I brought back a mounted army that I had sent out as reinforcements. I love waiting until an archer hits. If an archer hits somebody, and I know they wiped out their mount layers, I will pre-rain them with a mount army. Because your mount army, while it's like the sacrificial lamb, is throwing a huge wrench into the cog of that rally machine. So I brought one back because they ported. So all of a sudden I had mounted here. This is my mount march coming back home. So they didn't expect that. Um, Siege machine going negative. So we're making up for it on positive, right? Ground troop and Rains are going to do it, by the way. Mounted troop. Let's see. Siege machine. Negative T12. T11 mount. 1951. So my mount there does pretty good. My T10 mount. My philosophy on building T10s, T9 10s, and 11s is they're usually left out of my marches. So I look at them like a National Guard or a Coast Guard. When you get late into these matches and your marching armies are all depleted, these T10s and 11s are not being used for rallies, or in worst case scenario, they even will join. You'll send something because you don't have time to heal, and they'll still join a rally and do a little damage. But more than anything, I fattened up those layers with the idea that they wouldn't be sent out of the hive, I mean, out of my keep, so that when I'm taking defenses, I'm able to. They're never going to get depleted, no matter how many rallies I send. They're still there, and they're still able to tank defenses like this. I personally think that when you get now in these rallies where you see a 30 billion or a 35 billion one tap, I think of that keep as okay, heavy up top, very sparse in the middle, and even fat on the bottom, so that if you don't, if you get through the top or they're depleted, once they're weakened, you can one tap them because it's like cutting through tissue paper. Your keep, if you think of the layers, is it's like I try to tell people it's like how the concept that a telephone book works as a bulletproof vest. It's the layering, and having thicker layers is going to be able to hold off the penetration even longer. That's what she said. All right, T10 mounted did okay here. 9 siege. Huh. Okay. 9 siege holding off. I mean, that's interesting. 13, 9 getting kills. 10 siege. So we already established in my last report 9 siege. 10 siege did great defense at Archer, but now it's a double usefulness here because it's going to do some killing on siege. All right, how's my reinforcements? Hodler's raining. Ground going way positive. Ground, but it's ground against siege, right? So it's really helping me with the layers. Chewbacca sent me siege, went way positive, right? And this should help affect your ideas of what you're sending to people for defense. Gaia sent me ground, still made kills. So I'm still happy with it, and the layers help. Apple sent me ground. Didn't do massive kills. Good thick layers. Drunk Adam. Siege went positive. Siege went way, way positive. So Drunk Adam saved my ass. Buy you a beer, Drunk Adam. Let's take a look up top for, this was, I think, XO. Sends ground. Does some killing. Not massive. Okay. So, again, looking at the offense. And later on, I mean, like I said, I went through the enemy and started looking at their kill ratio based on their thickness of their layers, at the strongest players, and I noticed that 8 to 12,000 is kind of the sweet spot for layers on rallies. You're not taking too much power away from your main layers, but they're thick enough to last a few extra turns where you get a little extra killing. I had two players on one of these reports that were right next to each other, and the guy using 2,000 layers probably was running about 30% less efficiency on kills, versus the guy next to him running 10,000 layers. Watson, 13 siege going positive. What's that? 11 siege went 2-1. 13 siege went 1.5 to 1. 14 siege 1.5 to 1. Right. Okay. Let's see what else we have. Some interesting reports here. His archer to follow up went negative. I'm down to 23.8 billion at this point. I've built my keep so that once I'm wiped out and I'm all rallied out, at this point, I try to be like a very big trap keep. These rallies all hit me at once too, by the way. I didn't even have time to heal. Two teams set on me at the same time. But I'm just going to tell you right now, very simply put, my team saves my ass right here. 61 million reigns versus 81 million. Yeah, totally saved my ass against an archer hit. Absolutely. Shout out to you guys. Thank you for making the reigns. Right. But let's take a look at what happens to me here. My ground is still around. Right. So 15 ground is making kills. So I want to fatten up my ground layers. By next All-Stars, I'll probably aim to increase every layer, top to bottom, by a minimum of 50%, except for those middle layers where I'll try to double them. There's my plan. There's my keep build. That's how I build. 12 ground, tanking, 12 mounted, getting massacred, 11 mounted as that stopgap layer, my National Guard, if you will. If they cut through that layer, if my layer wasn't so thick, my 11 mounted, they would have wiped out my entire army. I would have gone negative, way, way negative. The fact that my T11 mounted was that thick still is the only reason why they stopped the rally at that level. Because the 10's a lot weaker, they would have cut through that a lot easier. Same thing. Right? 11 mounted. Siege to siege. Again, look at that lower tier siege that you really don't expect to get in the game. 8 siege with 2 million kills. 8 mounted with 2 million kills going positive. 9 siege, 10 siege, right? So now I'm going, okay, by next All-Stars, 9 and 10 siege, I got to double. I'm going to have to double them. 80 million T10 siege, 70 million T9 siege. This would have tanked even better, right? Hodler, Gaia. Let's see what her layers look like. And she's killing. She sent me ground, right? So these should tank. That's a great kill ratio there. Look at that, 30 to 1 for 14 ground. Right, so ground is tanking. And go through the attackers, see what their layers are doing, and again, doing this all day long. I've already verbalized to you guys what my plan is, what I'm going to do for the next one. That was Watson's second, I think, right? Yeah. Then Paco came back after me later. I was only 24 bill, so I think they smelled blood. But by now, I think the reinforcement glitch was a little better fixed. I've got tons of reigns, and this is the way to do it, man. Team sport. Thanks, guys. All right, all you guys. Lazarus, Latin, Woody. Like I said, great team today. Attackers, Paco, Spank, Cephalus Soul, Linehand. These are all good players. I know a lot of these guys. They're solid. Right, but again, Rain saved my ass. That's first, second. He sent Mount, expecting Mount to cut through. Here's one thing I do want to go through with this report. I remember this one. Ground is doing okay. It's still going negative up top. 15 range is killing here. 12 ground, 12 ranged. But then we get to 11 ranged. Look at that, wiping out an army. 10 ranged, clean kills, none injured. 9 ranged, clean kills, none injured. 8 ranged, 2 million clean kills, uninjured, right? All these lower tier ranged. Very difficult to kill off without having to go through the rest of the troops. T2 mounted gets in the game. T1 ranged. Look at that. Wipes out half an army. And I've been trying to tell people to build T1 ranged for a long time and getting a lot of shit for it. T1 game ranged plays. That's what I wanted to show you. Got to get that up to 1 billion by next battlefield. There you go. Go. Which one was that one? That was this. Let's go to this one. Rain saved my ass again. I'm down to 17 billion. I'm really on the ropes here. I think I was out of speeds at this point. I'm using gems to heal, just a few layers here and there. That costs a lot. Buffs, you want to see what they look like. You know, this might sound boring to some people, but again, for those of you nerds that I'm inspired by, and inspired by me, and like we love nerding out together, this stuff is like where the game gets interesting for me, not necessarily just Battlefield. What's tanking here? Look at that. My archers are tanking, right? Obviously, which makes sense given this is a ground rally, right? And when you have fat T1 layers, they can't get through those T1 melee troops to get to the archers. So they will tank. This is why I try to tell people, this is what trap keeps do. The T14 ground here is taking the brunt of the damage by their army, but the archers are hanging back and just killing from behind the meat shield that the ground troops are. So they work in tandem. That's the whole concept of the trap keep. 13 ground, 13 mounted, 12 ground. All right, but all getting slaughtered here. This is not great for me, right? But the archers are saving my ass. Now, this was interesting to me, and again, this is one of the reports I didn't go as in depth to. How the fuck did my siege get into the game here? Siege should really never kill ground, unless somebody accidentally sent an archer into this rally, or a siege, which is what I suspect we're going to find. T12 ranged, getting kills, right? Let's look at my National Guard layer, right? The T11. T11 ground is what the stopgap here. T11 ranged housed. T11 mounted was slaughtered already. 11 siege, right? So all of a sudden, the concept of the fat middle layers on defense is really changing this from what could have been a bloodbath, where they just start cutting through like a paper bag, to these fat layers stopping the bullet in its tracks, right? Stopping the rally in its tracks. T10 siege, awesome. T9 siege, awesome. T9 ranged, awesome. Right? I'll take that all day long. Those layers got to get fatter. Note taken. There. Plan for the next All-Stars. T8 siege. Awesome. I'll take that all day long. Clean kills. So I think I'm going to stop after this one. I know you guys are probably getting bored, but also the T1 layers. T1 range, got in the game. T1 ground, got in the game. T1 mounted, kind of got housed. That's kind of going negative here, but it's why it's there. It's the meat layer. That's what it's supposed to be doing. All right. Paco. This is the Paco here. Let's go to Mondo. All right. I think he expected that to be a 0, by the way. That ground is always the last troop. Mondo sending siege at me. 120 million troops. I've got 80 million reigns. Thanks, guys. Again, it's a team sport. I'm sure I way outbuffed Mondo's a beast. Yeah, he's K45, 5,500. I'm way outbuffed here, but thank God for my debuffs, right? Kind of evening the playing field here a little bit. Let's look at the defense. This is a massive siege. Wipes out my siege at negative there. My mount makes up for it there. I think I use my dragon skill at this point, which is why I have kind of sparse layers, but up top. 14 siege going negative, right? There's nothing you can do here, right? Again, people are deluded into thinking, oh yeah, siege is going to defend against siege. That's not what happened. My mount saved my ass. My reinforcement saved my ass. My mount saved my ass there. 6 million versus, look at that. It's like a 58, almost a 60. Yeah, it's like a 60 to 1. 57.5 to 1 kill ratio for my T12 mounted. That's awesome. T12 siege went positive, killed more than it took. Right? T11 siege went negative. 10 siege went way negative, but stopped them from cutting through all my siege and getting to my ranged troops. All right, let's see who else does some killing. 7 ground does a little bit of killing there at 10 to 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And boom, mounted. Saved my ass here. Right? You wouldn't really think that a T1 mount there would protect against a siege rally, would you? But it does. This is the knowledge that I'm trying to tell people. It's all there. It's all there. Stop asking me. Stop messaging me. Last Shalons, I'm in the freaking last round of the battlefield, and people are whispering me in the freaking game. That friended me like 2 months ago out of nowhere, and they're literally whispering me in the middle of fucking finals of Shalons. Hey, I'm a 3.5 billion K39. Should I build out this lair? I was gonna kill the guy. I actually blocked him, but I'm like, dude, are you fucking for serious? Then he sends his ground lair after just sending siege. That's interesting. So he just jumped. Mondo jumped straight from siege right to ground. Interesting. I still have all my T1s, which is gonna splat. So that was just a I think that was just a mistake to send. You should have sent mount. Would have hurt really bad. Um, and I still have a ton of reigns here, so this was kind of a little bit of a splat. He's got me way out buffed here, way out buffed. Battle defense. This will be fun to look at. Let's see what happens when you throw a ground at something with fat T1 layers. Ranged T15 is doing all clean kills. Wipes out an army alone, 1 layer. T15 mount is also wipes out an army. It's almost 10 to 1 ratio. 15 siege even went positive. That's really fascinating. You wouldn't think that against. It's probably wiping out layers there. 14 ground, neg. 14 ranged. Huh. All clean kills, right? Mounted, positive. Like, no surprises here, right? Ranged is getting all the kills. But in terms of build, let's take a look down at our National Guard troops, right? Our middle layers. 12 ranged, clean kills. Fat layer, good. 12 mount, positive. 11 ground, 2 to 1 negative. Not a shocker. 11 ranged, housed an army and a half. Awesome. 10 ground, actually went positive. 10 ranged, wiped out half an army. 9 ground, doing positive work even. 9 siege, clean kills. 8 ground, positive. Even 8 ranged, making a little bit of clean kill here. Clean kill work. 8 siege, clean kills. 7 ranged. Okay, so fatter middle layers is going to weed out another player out of their rally team. All right, T1 ground. That meat layer did what it was supposed to do. T1 and T1 ground and mount held up their troops. T1 mount did some actual killing, and T1 range. There you go again. Wiping out a million troops is nothing to sneeze at, right? That's still, like, think of like taking off a fraction of an army. It's still going to help. Thank you guys to the Rainers. Awesome to have a great team like that. And Mondo is using 1,000 layers. Kind of a little anemic if you ask me. Sorry, Mondo, if you're watching. Ground kills. He's a very powerful guy. Well buffed. He's going to go positive. Right? But it's going to hurt for any other player who's not that. Yeah, even. Little pause. Barely positive. Negative T12. Right? And just keep going down the line. And again, one of the things that I've been looking at a lot lately is march size layer and then clean kill ratio. Do they do better with fatter layers or thinner layers? I think the guys with thicker layers tend to do better. Then the guys who overdo it with 20,000 layers do a little worse. And that's it. These are a couple solos. That's it, guys. That's my process. I've literally walked you through it so that you understand it's not about figuring out the game anymore because they're liars. They're full of shit, just like they always are about so much other stuff. It's more now going to be about reading your reports, getting hit, praying you get hit. The worst thing that could happen to you is that you don't get hit, and then dissecting them. Who killed, who didn't, and taking notes. Okay, this there needs to be fatter. If this layer was double the size or half the size, what would have happened, right? As I grow, I stop building siege because I've realized it's a big, huge liability. The reason I think the difference between a weak defense and a strong defense at this level is the middle layers. Those fat middle layers stopping those rallies from cutting all the way through are why you're not getting these 20 or 30 billion dollar, 20 or 30 billion power hits, one shot zeros. That's all I got. I mentioned something in the other video I just did earlier tonight that I'm hoping to monetize the channel, and I'm going to just donate whatever I get from YouTube out to viewers, whoever's, somebody subscribed. I think we'll do like a contest. I thought about doing a meme contest, thought about doing doing a voting contest where people will tell stories about the most fucked up thing that happened on their server. And whoever gets the most votes for the most fucked up story would get the gift card for that payment. I'll work on monetizing. You guys come up with ideas for that. Put it in the comments if you have an idea for a contest, and let's have some fun. Thanks, guys.